I am in conversation with Ms. Patricia De Lille, who is the Minister of Tourism for Government of South Africa. We are talking at a time when there is enough and more happening when it comes to Global South and when it comes to BRICS as well. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out the time and speaking to NDTV.
Great pleasure, thank you.
India and South Africa are both very important members of the Global South, and Global South has some very important issues, climate being one of them, one of the most important, and the COP summit really proved that. In your assessment, how do you see the India-South Africa relationship ties, especially when it comes to climate, and can they become a leader when it comes to Global South, showing the way for some of the other countries around the world?
No, we're certainly on the side of India when it comes to climate change. And of course, India is correct in saying that it is not the developing nations, the Global South, that are responsible for climate change. All the so-called developed countries built their riches and their wealth on fossil fuels, cheap fossil fuels.
Yes.
And so we as a developing South have to pay for that. And it's not fair. It was not caused by the Global South. And of course, the peanuts that is being offered by the developed world to mitigate the impact of climate change on the whole world, it's ludicrous, it's ridiculous. After having caused the problem, then say to the developing nations in the Global South that you must go and fix it. So South Africa fully supports the stance of India when it comes to climate change issues.
South Africa now has the presidency of the G20. What are the key areas that South Africa wants to focus on in the G20? What about it, whether it is the focus on Global South, whether it is the focus on technology for developing countries, what is it that is going to be the key focus for South Africa in its G20 presidentship?
Just last week, Tuesday and Wednesday in South Africa, South Africa and India came together to look at a just transition from fossil fuels to renewable energies and look at solutions as to how we can mitigate it. So when it comes to climate change issues, there's a very good relationship. But with us assuming the G20 chairpersonship, we're also taking forward the legacies of Indonesia, of India and Brazil when they were leading the G20 nations. We will be continue to build on that. And you know, as we invite all the G20 nations to our country in 2025, we can't wait. You know, South Africans are very warm-hearted people. We can't wait to welcome all the G20 members to our shores. But we also encourage people to stay and continue to explore the beauty of South Africa. So it's a very exciting year awaiting us in South Africa.
In terms of your view with regard to BRICS, another very important multilateral institution, a platform where many countries are now wanting to be a part of, how do you see it? Its potential, its outlook, given the challenges that the world is facing and the headwinds that exist right now?
Let me start with the G20. It's under the leadership of India, of the G20 leadership, that they came with a resolution to accept the African Union as a full member of the G20. And we want to thank India for that. And the BRICS partners represent millions of people in the Global South. And again, it's an important platform to make sure that we look at how we trade amongst ourselves first. And that trade is growing. If you can see that India is our biggest partner in Asia, trading with South Africa, and many other countries in Africa. We must, as the Global South, as the G20, as BRICS, economic growth must be key on our agenda, inclusive economic growth, so that we deal with all the challenges that we face, like poverty, inequality.
I must ask you about the BRICS currency, its outlook amidst the commentary that's come in from President-elect Donald Trump, who's very categorically said that he's not going to allow anybody or any possibility of an alternate currency arrangement that may challenge or threaten the dominance of the US dollar. How do you see the prospects of the economic arrangement that the BRICS countries have really been talking about and have progressed much on, as well as on the BRICS currency?
Well, there's already an existing agreement that the BRICS currency, amongst ourselves as the BRICS nations, we will trade in our own currency. It is definitely give us value for money, and that has been happening. The debate about whether the BRICS countries want to shift to the dollarization of that, it's not on the agenda. What is on the agenda is that we want to trade as BRICS countries in our own currencies amongst ourselves, and nobody can stop us because it's to the benefit of the nations of the global south.